Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 217th Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Today, our panel will discuss illegal immigration, its history, and something about its future. Our panel begins with Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&D Financial Services, followed by Tom Finley, retired Vice President of Human Resources Development at Rubbermaid Incorporated. Then Patty Haskins, former member of the Wadsworth City Council and the Wadsworth High School faculty. Bryan, since 1822, there have been 5 significant changes in immigration laws, trending toward favoring white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Where do you think we should go from here?
Well, immigration is a very important part of all businesses and the growth in any particular country. And I think when you look at the history and the way they crafted immigration policy and law, they were going after people. Basically, they were Europeans, and they wanted to bring those people into the country because that represented talent. They were skilled workers. Any sort of country, whether it's the United States, China, you name it, they want skilled workers to come in. One of the problems that we're facing now, which in the past countries really haven't, is a declining birth rate. And you might say, well, what does that have to do with immigration? Well, Europe, particularly Germany and France, very well-developed countries, they have very low birth rates, and they don't have enough people to replace the workers that retire. And so that puts a strain not only on business, but it puts a strain on government resources. Less people pay taxes. So they craft immigration policy to bring in people to work at those factories in Germany and Europe and the like. China has the same problem. China's birth rate is below their replacement rate. And that spells disaster down the road. They might not feel it now, but they're beginning to put in policies. They relaxed, they had a 1-child policy. Right. Now they have a 2-child policy. And so they're doing things on a policy perspective to not only increase their birth rate, so down the road they have the workers, but they're also allowing more and more people to come into the country and fill those types of jobs. Saudi Arabia, those types of countries, there's a very large, portion of their population that are immigrants from the Philippines, Malaysia, the Pacific East. When you look at, China and those particular countries, they bring in a lot of immigrants. And we're in that particular situation now. We're quickly, our birth rate is falling precipitously. And we need to look at immigration policy and bring in skilled workers. So, you can always talk about securing the border. I believe in coming in the front door. I believe that both Republicans and Democrats need to get together and revamp our immigration policy. We can't have it be a political football anymore because it's affecting our country and our competitive nature and our ability to compete on a world stage. It would be nice to say, close the borders, but you do that, you won't have any oranges out of Arizona. You won't have any avocados coming out of California because there's a very large immigration population that fills those jobs that people in this country won't do. And so it's not so easy just to say, well, let's bring in more people from South America, or let's bring in more Europeans. We really need to sit down and work out a solution that benefits the country into the future, now and into the future. So that's how I see it. We need immigration. We need the right kind of immigration, and we need to stop using immigration as a political football. It doesn't belong in the political realm. That's where I fall on this issue.
Bryan, it wasn't that many years ago. There were a lot of people running around like Chicken Little, saying that we are doomed because of overpopulation. Are we paying the price for that panic?
Did you say to Patty or for me?
No, for you, anybody. But
No, I really don't. I really don't think. What I'm concerned about is the border states that have to deal with an influx. We have had a serious influx in our southern border. The incursions have gone through the roof. So we have a hole there that needs to be plugged some way, somehow. Those people need to be encouraged to come in the front door. They need to be encouraged in the countries that they live in to apply for citizenship. And we need to streamline the process of allowing them to come here. Not everybody can be a political refugee and basically trying to claim asylum. That seems to be a very popular area now, that everybody's claiming asylum from their countries. So there is an issue. I mean, it is an issue in the border states. I have relatives that live in Arizona, Texas. They're dealing with a big crisis down there because there's hundreds of thousands that are coming through a border that really has not been sufficient to encourage them to come in the front door to the country. So we do need to settle on an acceptable path and not just encourage people to come here without a job and just sort of throwing all the process to the wind.
Yeah.
So,
Tom, what are your thoughts?
Well,
yeah, Tom.
nobody's in charge. The most valuable resource we have is not water. We can go on with those things. It's the human resources of the country. Nobody's in charge. We don't have a department of anything else, so we have a fight, if you will, between the states, the border states, and the United States government of what immigration and who controls it, who should be in, and it goes on and on. The last time I checked, I think there were 55,000 jobs in this country unfilled. That ought to be a wake-up call to somebody, and enough that we probably need a department in the United States government called immigration, and it has the power to look at our borders. But more than that, the realistic look at the resource need we have in people, not just us, of course. Bryan brought up the statistics around other countries and what the reality is they're facing. It's the same as us. After it's all said and done, the most valuable resource we still have is the people. We better be providing for that. This is not a Congress thing. This is, to me, a responsible position in the United States government of a leader who's keeping track of what we should or shouldn't be doing.
Patty, don't we have somebody in charge of immigration?
Well, supposedly Kamala Harris has been placed in charge of immigration and the problem, but that also falls under the category. I believe immigration is handled through Homeland Security, if I'm not correct. Is that agreed?
I believe you're right.
Yeah, through Homeland Security. So there is, I listened to Bryan quite intently because I agree with everything he said. The present immigration system that we have is broken. And for political reasons on both sides, we've done nothing to reform the immigration laws that we have in this country. It's funny because I've heard the same proposals from both sides, but nobody wants to agree with it if somebody else says it. And so we consequently ignore good suggestions that are out there and serious work in a bipartisan manner of dealing with immigration. We have a situation now where, as was stated, the number of immigrants coming into the country has ballooned, and unfortunately, those that are coming through, as Bryan had said, are all claiming asylum, which is, I'm sure in some cases it's true, but in most cases it's simply because they want a better life or a better job. I keep hearing we'll do it the legal way. The problem with the legal way is it can take 10, 12 years in order to get into the country, and a lot of money, more than these people have, in order to gain access into the country. We need to make that system more doable for immigrants. We also need to have a good screening process. One of the big problems and concerns of those in the country with immigrants is that they're criminals and they're bringing in fentanyl and drugs and so forth. If we have a comprehensive immigration plan that would weed out those that are criminals, weed out those that are bringing in drugs. I would wager to say that most people coming into the United States are not criminals. They're just people seeking a better life. And we need to separate the wheat from the chaff there and determine who is good and who isn't. But again, do it in a way that is expedient or more expedient. We need to deal with the DACA people that are here within the country. Right now, they had their status upgraded a couple of presidents ago, and then it was taken down. And these people are in fear that they're going to be shipped out of the country and have no way to prevent that from happening. As Bryan mentioned, and also Tom, there is a need for migrants to work. Presently we have, I believe it's like an agricultural visa where you can come into the country and work on the farms, no matter where in the country. I remember used to as a child, go to Michigan in the summer up towards Traverse City. And everywhere you drove, you would see, because of the cherries, you would see migrant workers that were picking cherries. Now, a lot of that now is done by machines. It's not done by migrant workers, but there are places like, in Florida with the oranges or the avocados or whatever the crop may be. These are jobs that the average American citizen will not work. We need to have a way to legally allow this to occur because it is a benefit to our country. I just read this morning, it was interesting, it was an article in CNN that Biden wants to reinstitute the two-country policy that Trump had put into effect. Whereas if you're applying for asylum and you had to go through another country to get here, they're not going to allow you in. It's okay, you're seeking asylum, you can get out of your country, but you got to stay where you end up. You don't get to come on then and continue through to this nation. These are things that can be worked out. Right now, I don't see anybody doing anything that is helping the border crisis. And it is a crisis. And this is a Democrat saying that because of the political rivalries that we have going on in this country at this time. And that's absolutely ridiculous. We also need to find more guards or border police to staff these entrances, to be able to, part of the problem they have with the asylum seekers is they bring them in and they don't have the judges to hear their cases. They don't have the people to document who's coming in, get information on them. So unfortunately then, Governor Abbott or Governor DeSantis puts them on a bus and sends them to New York or Chicago or Washington, D.C., where it becomes a problem. That's not helping anything. We need to provide more people and more technology to the border police, to the government, for the government, in order to process those that are coming in. I know this can be worked out, but it's going to require people sitting down and talking to one another.
You know, every time we turn on the television media people, there's all this chatter about immigration at the border. I don't hear anyone talking about what you just said, Patty, putting more resources into processing legal immigrants. If it takes 10 to 12 years to get properly processed, that tells me there's something wrong with the process. We're spending trillions of dollars in this country on things that we don't even know where the money's going. That would be, to me, an appropriate use of funds, is to upgrade the ability to process legal immigrants.
I want to just say again, there's nobody in charge. There's nobody leading the policy, the recommendations for our most important natural resource.
Tom, we elected people to do that, and
We haven't established a department that's so important. We have for other natural resources. We haven't for this.
but
There's no leadership.
we have elected people to do that sort of
We've
thing.
elected people to do other things too. There is no leadership. Look around. We have fights between the United States government and states about the borders in the South. We don't have any in the North, by the way. I wonder why. So,
You know, I think one of the issues is that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
there you go, which takes
And
leadership.
we've had these problems before, and Homeland Security came to be after 9/11, because the FBI wasn't talking with local authorities. The stuff wasn't getting to the end of the row. The water wasn't getting to the end of the row where it needed to be. The process is, I would say, broken and strained because it creates a log jam. Now, I would say let's Amazon this thing, because if I can order you name it, a widget, and if I order it within 5 hours, it's going to be delivered to my house before 9 o'clock tonight. And we have to get government to start adopting processes and procedures that allow people to go and navigate the system, and it doesn't cost them $25,000. And they don't have to hire an immigration attorney to represent them. It should be a process where an individual can go, whether it's an embassy in another country or our own country, and apply for citizenship. It shouldn't take 12 years to do that. It's not. In today's day and age, information flows at the speed of light. They know if your credit card is good or not within a half a second when you hit that send order. So we need to apply and step back and look at the problem and say, we've got to get this out of the political realm. It's not helping anybody when you have, people are whipsawed back and forth in these border states. I mean, Arizona and California, their school systems are strained. They have to teach children that they don't speak English. So you have to hire teachers that are bilingual. Well, how many teachers are bilingual out there? There aren't many. So that's the bottleneck that gets created. So we've just got to sit back and say, guys, let's stop with this political stuff. Let's solve the problem. And
Well, every time we solve the problem, we take away from politicians something to blame on other politicians. And I think that we've got a terrible problem because as voters, we are a manipulated mess. I think that we vote for the wrong people for the wrong reasons every year.
Well, and I think the case in point is Donald Trump put in place and supported things that Barack Obama put in place. You have to stay in your country to apply. That was clearly a bipartisan issue. He put that in place, and man, they came off. I mean, they came unhinged because of that. How dare him keep these people in their countries? We got to stop that kind of stuff. And if our current president puts in place an immigration policy, we should all get behind it. I mean, we need we need people to work, in our country.
One of the
Because
other concerns I think they have is quota systems. And this has been whether it be because of bias or prejudice or actual need for a particular skill brought by a different country. But our immigration history over the years, it has been, I think, marred or defamed because of the fact that we have quota systems that say if you're a certain race, you're the type of person that we want in this country, and not whether you're Asian or African American, or do we wanted Western Europeans. I know even during World War II, there were, I think I'd mentioned before in one of the shows, I watched a program on the Holocaust, and a large ship of Jewish refugees was turned away from this country because this country did not want more Jews in the country. And many of them were then sent back to their home country in Europe and ended up in a concentration camp because of that. There are cases where we have to look at people as people and look at the needs that we have and have some empathy for those that are coming into this country. And it's just not getting done right now.
Yeah.
Well, most of the laws starting in 1822 with the Chinese Exclusion Act,
yes,
have been oriented toward keeping people out.
Yes.
Until 1924, we didn't have a quota system where we decided who were the best people and what would be their backgrounds in education and so forth. Other than that, we've been trying to keep people out for the longest time. In fact, I look at our panel, the four of us all had a characteristic that made us undesirable to be an immigrant, two Catholics and a Mormon. Tom Finley's the only guy that would have been welcome. But there were reasons to keep the rest of us out.
Right.
And that's unfortunate. It is.
Well, I just want to go back. Even in our conversation, we've been using the word we, which immediately implies there's no one accountable for the policies, the structure, anything, the measurement, anything to address this extremely, and I would say, the most important resource we have.
Well, I think the we
can't hand it over to the politicians. There must be a leader who's recommending and has looked into and understands the process.
Where are we going to get that leader unless
someone who runs
pick
Amazon?
The right one? Unless we pick the right one. I'm beginning to wonder if democracy is just a failure all the way around.
I don't go that far, John.
No,
I don't go that far.
Well, I'm only wondering.
I think what happens.
Amazon's leader.
What happens is people don't gravitate towards government jobs. Okay, Elon Musk, who everybody now, he's a crackpot. If you listen to certain factions in our society, because he bought Twitter and took it private, but they loved him when he was building. He's built more electric cars here than anywhere. They loved it when he's doing the Starlink and he's helping NASA and all that. Because we need someone like that thinks sort of outside of the box to look at the problem and say, hey, you know what? Let's do this, and this. We outsource. I mean, I'm sure Tom and everybody's familiar with outsourcing jobs, building plants all over the world because of that human resource.
Isn't Elon Musk an immigrant?
Yes, he is.
From
South Africa.
Correct?
Yeah,
that's
South
interesting.
Africa. Yeah.
Beside him, and that's an immigrant.
Yeah, he's African. So,
is he a citizen?
I believe he is now.
I think he is. Yeah.
But he immigrated from South Africa.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. So
he holds the distinct honor of being the only person that's paid more than anyone else in the history of the United States in taxes. He
Yeah.
paid how
Probably
many-
made more than anybody else.
and that's the beauty
Well,
of it. You know,
Yeah.
he's not complaining. He's like, I'll pay the tax. But you know, once again, it's that human resource. You have to find skilled people, and you have to be able to have a process to get them to come here and stay. I've always thought this isn't very popular, but if you come here from another country to get your PhD or to get your graduate degree, you need to stay here then for 5 years and work, because we get a lot of brain drain.
Oh,
They come
I
here.
agree.
You know,
Yeah.
they come here because we have some of the best colleges and universities in the world, and they get their PhD, and next thing you know, they're back in China. Well, guess what? You know, they should stay here and add to and be accretive to our system for a while, and then they can go back. But you know, that's not a popular opinion amongst higher education. You know, they want that out of state dollar, you know, that tuition,
Or out of the country dollar.
that out of the country dollar. Yeah. But
When's
we
the
don't-
last?
I mean,
When's the last time any of us visited a doctor who was born in this country?
Mine was.
my doctor is.
I have 4 doctors right now. 2 of them were not.
Yeah.
All of mine were it just by chance. All of my doctors were
Yeah.
born here, but
I want the best doctor. I don't care where he or she is from. You
that's
know,
true.
I want the best guy or girl or whatever you want to call them, because you know that's important, and we got to get away from pigeonholing people. You know, depending upon where they're from and all that kind of stuff. And I just want the best one. You know, if they're going to open me up, I want the best one with the scalpel. So
You know, unfortunately, immigration basically now is you can get into the country if you have enough money. Or you have the right connections.
mhm.
And you know, some of the genius excuse. I know Melania Trump was granted citizenship based on the fact that she was a genius. I'm not saying she's not a bright woman, but she was a model, and it was not a profession that we needed to fill. You know, it was,
Well, folks, you know, this has been a very good discussion, and I'm
Good to see everybody again.
I'm
Yes.
sorry that it's over.
Yeah.
See you all in a couple of weeks.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.